98, 99, 100. Whoo-wee. Hi guys, you caught me in the middle of my workout. I'm just trying to get a little bit stronger, kind of like the person we're going to talk about today. Can you guess who it is? Because we're on S. And if I said strong, probably know who it is. But before we let the cat out of the bag and say what it is, we have to review. Bible ABCs. Alrighty. Hit it! A for Aaron. B for Bible. C for Christ. D for David. E for eyes. F for 40. Are we looking? G for Galilee. Second row. H for Hannah. I for idols. J for Joseph. K for kindness. L for lepers. M for Mark. Can you see these? Yes. N for Nineveh. Next row. O for olives. P was for prayer. That was a good one. Q was for Queen Esther. And then last week we talked about R for running. So that brings us up, boop, to the letter S. Here we are. So I told you guys I was doing a little workout, trying to get strong, get my strength up, just like Samson. Hey, that's our S word for today. You probably guessed it. Did you guess it? You didn't? Okay. Well, we're going to talk about Samson. So, you might know a little bit about him, but hopefully I can add a little bit more to your story. And we're going to talk about strength and being strong and kind of what that looks like for us as Christians. So just to set the scene, Samson's story is found in the book of Judges. So picture the Old Testament. And Judges is really interesting because it was a time where Israel didn't have a king just yet. And so they were kind of going into Canaan, had to defeat the Canaanites. And they kind of did it a little bit, but they didn't really finish it off like God told them to. And so instead of kings kind of ruling the land, you had lots of different judges, and some judges were pretty good and they stuck by God and they fulfilled the things that they were supposed to do, and then others were not so good, and Samson is actually one of the not so good ones. So it's interesting that we oftentimes in Sunday school talk about him, right? Because you think, oh, we probably talk about the one we want to be the most like, but you can definitely learn something from his life, and kind of he lived a really incredible life, which is cool. And it goes to show that God has plans for all of us. Even if we don't always follow exactly what He set out for us to do, and we know that because of Jonah. Again, going away from Nineveh. So God can use us even when we're disobedient. Doesn't like it, but He can still use us. So let's deep dive into Samson. So we're going to talk about some times that he was really strong, but let's talk about his birth first. So his mom and dad weren't able to have any children, and then an angel came, and he said, I think, that the angel let them know that they were going to have a son, and he was going to be a Nazarite, meaning they needed to just let his hair grow long and never let a razor cut it. But the angel kind of gave a prediction and said he is going to deliver Israel from the Philistines. Because what was happening right at this time, the Philistines had captured Israel, so they were kind of living under Philistine rule, and so they weren't able to do kind of the things that they chose. They were under, a different set of rules from the Philistines. So Samson grows up. He has this long, great hair. I believe the Bible says it's in 7 different braids, so you can kind of picture that. And he was really strong. So picture a guy with muscles, and he's buff, and he's, probably pretty handsome dude. And so these are some of the ways that the Bible tells us that he used his strength, right? And so one of the instances, the Bible tells us that he was walking along and there was a lion. And so he was able, the Bible says, with the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he was able to kill the lion. Sometime later, he came back and he found that lion carcass that he had killed, and inside of it was some honey and some honeycomb. So he was able to eat the honey out of the lion's body. That's interesting, right? But killing a lion with your hands is pretty brave, and you have to be super, super strong to do that. Now, the Bible also tells us that he got really upset at the Philistines. They did something that was really unfair to him, and so in order to get back at them, he used his strength again, and he captured, the Bible tells us he captured 300 foxes. And so picturing him getting all these foxes together, and he actually tied them up by their tails 2 by 2. So picture if it's 300, you're going to have 150 pairs of these foxes. And then he put a torch on their tail. And what he did was they ran through the fields and they burned all the Philistine crops. That's pretty intense, right? That's very vengeful, Samson. But again, it shows his powerful strength, and he was able to capture all these foxes and to do this thing. So here's the thing. You can bet that the Philistines are mad. They are charged up. And so they want to capture him. They want to put him in jail. They want to punish him. They want to get rid of him. And so these guys from Judah find Samson, and they're like, hey, Samson, listen, okay, we get it, you're upset, you're doing all this stuff, but the Philistines are super mad, so you're going to have to let us turn you over to the Philistines so, everybody can be calm. And Samson, probably to your surprise and mine, he's like, okay, yeah, you're not going to kill me though, right? And the guys from Judah are like, no, we're not going to kill you. We're just going to capture you. But this is cool, right? We can do this. And he's like, sure. Just tie me up with these ropes and it'll be fine. So they do that. And they're thinking, okay, it's going to be a little bit peaceful. No more foxes, no more torches. Everybody's going to behave for a little bit. And then, of course, as they're turning Samson over to the Philistines, he breaks loose, and again, Spirit of the Lord, next to him or around him, he finds the jawbone, so this bone, the jawbone of a donkey, and he actually ends up killing, the Bible says, 1,000 Philistines with a jawbone. So that's definitely going to be a sign of his strength. So just picture him going through there and killing away. So he's not going to be captured, that's for sure. Now, another instance of his strength that has nothing to do with foxes or lions or jawbones, interesting, was one night he was staying the night in Gaza, and a lot of the folks there heard that Samson was in their town, and they were like, we're going to kill him. And so Samson found this out. So in the middle of the night, he took the gate and the post that the gates were attached to outside the city walls. He took all of this and walked it up a mountain to get rid of it. So not only did he not want to be captured or killed, but he took away the gate of the city, which is really fun, really interesting, because now somebody's going to have to fix that and put that back together. So he just gave somebody a chore. Somebody can't relax on their Saturday. They have to do work. Okay, so now the last part of Samson's story, the last 2 chapters, kind of deal with probably something you're more familiar with when he meets Delilah, and then what happens after that. So let's talk about that. So he meets Delilah, and the Philistines see this, and they figure they can use her to get to him. And so they tell Delilah, listen, if you can tell us why Samson is so strong, and we can stop him, we'll give you a bunch of money. She's like, well, okay, I think I can do that. And so she talks to Samson and she says, listen, tell me why you're so strong. And he says, well, if I were to be tied up with what amounts to some bowstrings, right? So if you picture a bow and arrow, that little string where you pull the arrow back. If I'm tied up with those, I'll lose my strength. And she's like, So she ties him up and then she says, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. And of course he jumps up and they're like, what? You're still strong. Well, that wasn't it. And then she gets a little upset and she's like, why didn't you tell me the truth? You're making me look dumb. And he's like, okay, for real this time. If you tie me up with a new rope that has never been used, just like this one, I'll lose my strength. She's like, okay. So she ties him up, and of course, she gives out the call, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. He jumps up, ready to fight. And of course, that did not take away his strength. So this is not going anywhere. And so she's still begging, what? Just please tell me what it is. And he's like, okay, if you take my hair and you weave it and stick a pin in the weave it in a loom, then for real this time, all my strength is going to be gone. She's like, okay. So she weaves his hair in the loom, sticks a pin in it, and then, of course, gives out the call, the Philistines are upon you. And then he jumps up, ready to fight. He's just full of baloney, right? This is a game right now. And so then she kind of turns it on a little bit. She's like, if you loved me, you would tell me, we wouldn't have secrets. You know, this whole thing, she's really laying it on thick. And he's like, okay, which, why would he tell her? Let's just think about that for a second. But he did. He said, my strength comes from my hair. So if someone were to take a razor and take off my hair, so I drew a razor there. If somebody takes a razor to my hair, then I will lose my strength. And she's like, okay. And she's like, well, why don't you sleep with your head in my lap tonight? And he's like, okay, I'm a little sleepy. So he goes to sleep, and then his hair is shaved off, right, with the razor. And then she gives out that fateful call, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. And he wakes up ready to rumble, and the Bible tells us that the Spirit of the Lord has left him, which is sad, right? Because up to this point, we got the Spirit of the Lord fighting the lions, picking up jawbones, capturing foxes. I mean, this is like a show, right? This is like a great action movie. And the Spirit of the Lord left him. So he is on his own, and he can't do it. He can't do anything on his own. And so the Bible tells us that he's put in brass cuffs, so picture, kind of handcuffs for those days, and let out. But before he leaves, they do something a little extra, and it's kind of mean. But the Philistines, they poke his eyes out. So picture him, he's blind. Now he's being let out. His muscles aren't working anymore. He's wondering why Delilah did this to him, and he's off. He's off to prison. So this would be pretty sad, right, if it was the end of the story. And it would be a good lesson on learn to keep your mouth shut, right? If you have a secret power, don't tell people about it. They might use it for bad things, but God is not done with Samson. And so here's what happens. You guys know, probably know this part. It's the probably most famous part of his story. So what happens is, because he's captured, the Philistines want to honor their God because they feel like, capturing Samson is definitely a gift from their God. And I believe his name is, the god's name that they're worshiping is Dagon or Dagon, D-A-G-O-N. And so they go into the temple. They're having this big celebration, 3,000 people. So picture just swarms of people. There's the Bible talks about it. They're on the roof even. So it's the biggest thing. Everybody's happy. The mood's really merry. And then they're like, why don't we bring out Samson so he can give us a show? Not really realizing like, he's not strong anymore. He can't lift this gate, or pick up a cow or whatever. Like his strength is gone. But they parade him out, and this is going to be their undoing, right? They should have left him alone. But he comes out, and again, you picture he's blind. He's got his hands chained, and the servant who's leading him, he tells him, will you put me between some columns so that I can prop myself up? And the servant is like, sure. So he does that, not thinking why exactly Samson was asking for this. So he puts him between the two columns. And then here's where we hear Samson pray to God. And he says, God, please give me this last chance. Please give me strength. Let me take care of these Philistines, and I will die with them. And so with that, Bible tells us his strength returns, and you can picture him pressing on those columns, pushing, and of course gravity is going to take force, and so with the columns gone, stuff starts to fall. people who are sitting on the roof start to fall. The weight of the building is landing on the people who are in it and underneath it. And it's kind of like that domino effect. These two columns go and everything else starts falling. And of course, subsequently, Samson dies himself. He dies because the blocks fall on him. But he was able to take care of, the Bible tells us he was able to kill 3,000 Philistines that day. And it was actually more than he had killed, over his lifetime. So with this one kind of final act, it was the most that he had ever killed. And so that's Samson, okay? So really interesting story, right? God gives gifts to everybody. He gave Samson strength, and Samson used it in different ways. And some of them were pretty positive. Some of them were a little vengeful, but nonetheless, God was with him through all of that. And so we kind of have to think about, again, what are our lessons? What can we learn from Samson? Because again, I told you he was not so good judge, and when we think about all the judges, but lessons can always be learned no matter what. And so one of the things we can think about is, and I talk about this a lot with you guys, is our purpose with God, right? So all of us kind of have similarities in our life, like, we eat food, we breathe air, that sort of thing. But God has given us each individual talents. The way he gave Samson strength, maybe he gives you kindness, maybe he gives you humor, maybe he makes you really athletic or helps you be athletic, that sort of thing. So again, God gives all of us our talents, and he really wants us to use these to further his kingdom, right? So if you are very strong, maybe it's really good on the sports field, right? And when you play sports, but you can also use it to help people at church, maybe to help move things. If a neighbor's moving, you could help them move as well. So you can use the strength that you have to do other things. Maybe you're like me and you really enjoy drawing. You can draw Bible lessons when you get older and you teach Bible school like I do. You can also draw cards to encourage people. You can draw drawings for, maybe family members to help them feel better. So again, God gives us all so many different talents. Everybody has different ones, and that kind of makes it way more fun than all of us doing the same thing. But what's really important is for us to figure out how we can do that and to bless people and do things for God's kingdom. And it's also important to note that Samson's strength came from God. And so it's important for us to remember that our strength comes from God. Whether it's physical strength, God designed our bodies and made them, our bodies are the temple of God, made them to sustain us. And so that's really important. But God also gives us kind of emotional strength and mental strength. So maybe there's times that we're really nervous, maybe we're scared about something, we can ask God for strength and rely on his strength the way that Samson did to help us through those moments. And he's more than willing to give us that when we ask him. And then the last thing is opposition. So Samson faced a lot of opposition, right? Sometimes it was from his own people. Sometimes it was from women. And also he faced a lot of internal opposition, right? Sometimes he was his own worst enemy. But the Bible tells us that God has overcome the world as in the Great Commission. Just... You see where I'm going with this. God has overcome the world. And so even though things in the world might pull at us, might press on us, it's not the end of our story, because wherever those things are happening here, God is above it. And he is able to help us through it. So, but it is important to note that God never said that it's going to be easy. But Philippians, Paul says that I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And so that's important for us to remember too. We are going to need strength, and it's not always going to be easy, but we can rest and be comforted in the fact that God's strength is always available for us and there to help us out for the rest of our lives, which is pretty cool. So, hope you enjoyed S for Samson. And hope you enjoyed seeing me finish my workout this morning. All right, so for your craft, it's kind of cool. So it's just going to be a list of kind of some Samson fun facts, right? And what you want to do is to cut out each one into strips and then turn them, like this, and make them into a chain. And so in order to keep your chain together, you can use tape, you can use glue. Probably the easiest one, though, is going to be a stapler. All right. And so as you make the chain, you cut out the next one, put it on, and you kind of have a long chain. And it's a good reminder because it has the story of Samson on it. But then also, too, you can remember that once he was captured, he was put in these chains, right? So it kind of harkens back to the lesson a little bit. But that's us for today. Hope you enjoyed it. And again, I hope you learned a little bit more about Samson. I did as I was reviewing it to talk to you guys about it. It was fun to kind of re-look at it because I Samson isn't a character necessarily that I go back and look and kind of glean a lot from, but I sure did, yeah, with this lesson. So always good. And I think it would be really important too, or kind of like a fun part of the lesson. After we log off, you guys can sing, "My God is so great," right? So the words of that are, my God is so great, so strong and so mighty, right? And so we know that even though Samson was super strong, like a superhero, God is even stronger, and God is on our side. So as long as we continue to devote our life to Him, pray, ask for forgiveness, all that good stuff, there's nothing we can't do through God. So enjoy that thought, put it on your heart, and enjoy your week too, and your day as well. And so next week, QRST. Ooh, T. Okay. Yeah, that'll be fun. I don't know what we'll do yet, but it'll be great. Enjoy making your chain. Have a fun week, and be sure to ask your family members too about what they like about the story of Samson, how they use strength every day and use strength from God. I think that's really important. But enjoy, and I will see you next time. Now I'm going to lift some more weights. It's going to be good. Bye, guys.